It was raining that day, a steady rhythm that fell against the window panes of my bookstore. I could hear it, soft, almost soothing, like a conversation I could barely make out. I stood behind the counter, the scent of old pages and dust hanging in the air. My fingers absent-mindedly traced the spine of an old favorite, a book I must have read a dozen times. I felt the pull in my chest, a kind of yearning I hadn't been able to shake. Love. The word echoed in my mind, and as always I felt the familiar tension rise. Love had always been something I could admire from a distance, like a story I could read but never touch. I was good at staying on the outside. But lately, it was becoming harder to ignore how much I wanted to be a part of it. At 32, I found myself standing at the edge of my own life, the weight of my years pressing heavily on my shoulders. I was muscular, with a strong build that often betrayed my inner shyness. I wore formal clothes that seemed to cloak me in an armor of sorts, but beneath the surface. Maybe it was the ticking of time, the creeping sense that I was running out of it. I wanted more. I craved love, connection, something deeper than the ink and paper of my bookstore. That's how I ended up in front of Aurora's door. She wasn't the kind of witch you'd expect. The first time I saw her, she was reading by the fire, surrounded by books and artifacts that hummed with energy. Her hair was long and golden, falling in soft waves, and her eyes. They had a warmth to them, a sort of playful edge. Aurora wasn't like anyone I'd ever met. She had a spark, a certain ease to her movements, a confidence that I found myself drawn to, even though I told myself I was here for something else. Something practical. I remember clearing my throat awkwardly. I need a love potion. She turned, a playful smile dancing on her lips. "What's got you all flustered, big guy?" she asked, leaning against her countertop. I can't tell her. I can't confess my feelings, I confessed, each word tumbling out clumsily. I need a potion to help me. Aurora laughed lightly, a sound that seemed to dance through the air like a soft melody. "Ah, so you're one of those hopeless romantics. Love's tricky, you know, but I can help." She leaned over, reaching for something, and her arm touched against mine. It was so light, so brief, but it was enough to make my breath catch. I didn't move. I couldn't. The warmth from that tiny touch spread through me, making me more aware of how close we were standing. When she turned back, I could feel her warm breath on my neck. There was a moment, just a heartbeat really, where everything seemed to stop. Her gaze was deep and inviting, a gentle pull that made it hard to breathe. In that moment, I could see everything, the kindness in her eyes, the curiosity, and perhaps something more. It was as if the rest of the shop melted away, leaving just the two of us suspended in that charged moment. My hand instinctively moved, wanting to close the distance, to feel her warmth again. I could see the way her breath caught just slightly, the way her lips parted as if she might say something. But we stayed there, locked in this quiet exchange, our hands mere inches apart on the counter. I could almost feel the heat radiating from her fingers, a gentle warmth beckoning me closer. But remember, love potions aren't a guarantee. Love needs to be real," she said in a serious tone, rubbing her fingers on the bottle. Lost in my imagination, I could hardly hear anything. Everything seems to just fade. She gently pressed my arm, saying, "Are you listening?" I couldn't help but notice the way her touch lingered. Just, just sprinkle it on me. I'll make it work," I insisted, desperation creeping into my voice. The witch moved about her workspace, collecting an array of colorful ingredients that promised the magic I was craving. She mixed, stirred, and finally handed me a small vial filled with shimmering liquid. "Remember, you're going to want to focus on your feelings when you use it. If you don't truly feel it, it won't work," she said, in a serious tone. I nodded, holding the vial tightly. It felt warm against my palm, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope. The following day, I stood outside the bookstore, staring at the door like it was a portal to another world. I took a deep breath, clutching the vial, the familiar jingle of the bell above echoing my resolve. Emma, my secret crush, was behind the counter, as usual, pouring coffee with her usual grace. Her laughter floated through the air like music, and I felt that familiar rush of nerves and excitement. "Hey, Emma," I called, trying to keep my tone casual. "Hey, Bruce, what's up?" she replied, her eyes lighting up. I walked up to the counter, heart pounding like a drum. This was it. I was going to tell her. I could feel the love potion's warmth still lingering in my veins, giving me the confidence I thought I'd need. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" I asked, my voice a bit unsteady. "Sure. Is everything okay?" Her brow furrowed slightly, and I could see her concern. "It is. I've been thinking a lot about us," I started, my palms clammy against the wood of the counter. "And I really like you, Emma. I mean, really like you." For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Her expression shifted from curiosity to something else. Was it surprise? Fear? "Wow, Bruce, I didn't know you felt that way," she said slowly, her voice softening. "Really? I thought I made it pretty obvious," I chuckled nervously, trying to lighten the mood. She smiled weakly, but the hesitation in her eyes told me this wasn't going the way I hoped. "You're such a great guy, but I've been thinking too. I just don't feel the same way, not like that." My heart sank. It felt like someone had ripped it out of my chest and stomped on it. "Oh, I see. I'm so sorry," she continued, her voice sincere but pained. "You're sweet and kind, and I really appreciate you. But I'm just not in a place for a relationship right now. I've got so much going on with work and—" Couldn't help it. I cut her off, desperate to keep my composure. "It's okay, really. I thought maybe there was something between us." She took a step back, and the distance felt like a chasm opening up between us. "There is. I value our friendship a lot, Bruce, but I just can't see us as more than that. I hope you can understand." The room felt smaller, the walls closing in on me. I nodded, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. "Yeah, I get it." I tried to brush it off. to play it cool. So, you want to grab lunch later? As friends? Of course. I'd love that, she said, relief washing over her features, unaware of the storm brewing inside me. I left the coffee shop, the door swinging shut behind me with a finality that echoed in my heart. Each step felt heavy, like I was walking through molasses. The potion's warmth had faded into a cold chill of rejection. Outside, the world moved on, oblivious to my heartbreak. I leaned against a lamp post, feeling the cool metal bite into my back, grounding me in the moment. I took a deep breath, trying to steady the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside. Why didn't I see this coming? I muttered to myself. I had known deep down, hadn't I? The signs were all there, like a neon sign blinking in my face. She was busy, she was complicated, and maybe I had just gotten carried away with a fantasy I had created. My phone buzzed in my pocket, breaking me from my thoughts. It was a call from Aurora. Aurora. Hey, how'd it go? Well, your potion didn't work, I said in a rough tone, frustration creeping into my voice as I ended the call abruptly. I took a long walk towards Aurora's shop. When I reached, I said, "That potion was useless. Emma thought I'd lost my mind." Aurora chuckled softly, but there was a hint of understanding in her eyes. "These things take time, Bruce. You need a real connection. Love's not something you can just bottle up in a potion," she said. She continued, "Love can be complicated. It can be beautiful, but it can also hurt." "What about you?" I asked, noticing a shift in her expression. "Have you ever been through something like that?" She hesitated, a shadow passing over her features before setting down her work and joining me on the couch. "Yeah, I've been there," she said, her voice dropping to a more reflective tone. "It was a long time ago, but it still hits me now and then." "Do you want to talk about it?" I offered, genuinely interested. There was something in the way she spoke that made me feel like I was about to hear something significant. "His name was Leo," she said, staring out the window. "We met in college. He was this amazing photographer, so passionate, so creative. I fell for it, hard." I listened, captivated by the way she spoke about him, the glimmer of fondness mixed with pain. Everything seemed perfect. We fell hard for each other, and our relationship was passionate, wild nights filled with laughter and dreams. But as time went on, things shifted. Leo became possessive. He didn't like when I practiced my witchcraft. He said it distracted me from him, from us. I thought he was just being protective, but it quickly turned suffocating. Aurora's eyes were distant, and I could see the pain etched on her face. He wanted me all to himself, and I began to feel like I was losing a part of who I was. My magic was my identity. It's what made me, me. I can't imagine how hard that must have been, I said softly, feeling a deep empathy for her. It was isolating, she admitted. I became so wrapped up in trying to please him that I lost sight of my own happiness. He wanted a perfect little family, but he didn't realize I needed to be free, to express myself fully, she said. Without thinking, I stepped closer, my movements slow and careful, like I didn't want to startle her. I reached out, my hand finding the small of her back. I rested it there, light at first, almost like I was testing the water. But when she didn't move away, I pressed just a little more, feeling the warmth of her through the fabric of her shirt. She sighed, a long breath that seemed to let go of some of the tension she'd been holding. I moved my hand in small circles, barely noticeable, just enough to let her know I was here, that she wasn't alone. Her body leaned into mine, just the slightest bit, but it was enough. I looked into her eyes, wanting her to see the sincerity in mine. In that moment, I wasn't just comforting her, I was sharing in her vulnerability. It felt sacred, this space we created together filled with warmth and understanding. I wanted her to know that it was okay to lean on me, to let me bear some of her burden, if only for a little while. "Was your son born while you were still together?" I asked carefully, trying to read the emotions in her face. "Yeah. Felix came along right in the middle of all that mess," she said, still leaning on me, her eyes brightening for a moment. "He's a light in my life, but having him made it even harder to leave. I wanted to give him the stability of a family, but I realized I was sacrificing my own happiness for that ideal." I felt a surge of admiration for her. "How did you finally manage to leave?" Aurora took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "It wasn't easy. There were nights when I cried myself to sleep, wishing for things to be different. But one day, after another fight where he belittled me for doing something witchy, something that brought me joy, I woke up and realized I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't sacrifice my spirit for someone who didn't appreciate me." Her eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of strength and vulnerability. I packed our things, took Felix, and left. It was scary, but I knew it was the right choice. I had to find myself again, embrace my magic, and just be who I am. "That took guts," I said, feeling a new kind of respect for her. "And how did he react?" She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "He was furious at first, and I knew he would try to manipulate me into coming back, but I stood my ground. I told him that I wouldn't let anyone take my magic from me again, and after some time, he stopped trying to contact us. I think he realized I meant it." "That must have been a relief," I said, wanting to reach out and comfort her. "It was," she smiled sadly. "But it took a long time to rebuild my life. I had to learn to be a mother and a witch on my own. It was challenging, but I found my strength in Felix. He became my focus, my joy. And I realized that love doesn't always mean being with someone. Sometimes it means setting boundaries and valuing your own heart." Her words resonated deeply with me, and I felt a shift in my perspective. "Thank you for sharing that with me. I guess I didn't realize how complex love can be." "Love is messy," she said with a knowing smile. "But it's also beautiful when it's real and mutual. Just remember, Bruce, that you deserve to be with someone who appreciates you for who you are." As I sat there listening to her story, thinking how Aurora had been through and she emerged stronger, and her strength inspired me to confront my own fears about love. "Maybe one day," I said, a hint of hope threading through my voice, "I'll find someone who appreciates me like that." "I have no doubt you will. Aurora replied, her smile genuine and warm. Just be open to it when it happens. I returned again and again, each time hoping for a different outcome with a different girl. There was Ava with her bright laughter, Ariel with her shared love of books, even Rachel, the vibrant artist I'd met at a gallery. Each time, I sprinkled the potion, faced rejection, and each time I went straight to Aurora. Shouting at her that her potions are fake and she did was to smile at me. She seemed to light up the room and make me calm. One evening after a rejection, I went to Aurora. She told me that she would make me another potion. I was sitting by the fire, watching her making another potion, moving her hands, and it just clicked. It wasn't some mysterious person I wanted to confess to. It wasn't an old flame or a new crush. It was her. Aurora. She glanced up from her book, noticing my gaze lingering on her a little too long. "What?" she asked, her lips curling into a smile. "Did I grow a second head?" I laughed softly, but it didn't mask the nervous flutter in my chest. "No, it's just, I've been thinking." About? About why I keep coming back. The words were heavy, but they felt right. I told myself it was because the potion wasn't working, but I swallowed, my heart racing. I think I just wanted to see you. There was a pause. The fire crackled softly, filling the silence between us. Aurora took a step closer, her eyes searching mine. "Bruce, Before she could finish, I stepped closer, hesitating for just a second before my hand reached out. Rough against her skin. The moment I touched her arm, I could feel the softness of her skin. Under my coarse fingers, a stark contrast that sent a quiet thrill through me. Her breath caught. Just barely, but it was enough to make me pull her a little closer. My hand tightening gently, feeling the warmth of her body so near. "I love you, Aurora. I don't need magic to see what's right in front of me." Not quite sure what I was saying, but needing to say it. I'm not exactly the most romantic guy. I'm not good with any of this. But you make me feel like I don't have to be. You make me feel comfortable, like maybe it's okay to be unsure sometimes. Aurora's smile faded. "Bruce, I held up my hand, stopping her. "You don't have to say anything. I needed to tell you. That's all." The silence stretched between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that felt full, like there was more to be said, but no rush to say it. The rain continued to fall softly outside. We sat next to each other on the couch, the room bathed in a soft, golden light. I shifted a little, trying to get more comfortable, and in doing so, my knee brushed against hers. It was such a small thing, just a light touch, but it sent a shiver through me. She didn't move away, and neither did I. I could feel my heart start to pick up speed, the steady rhythm turning into something faster, something heavier. Our eyes met. Her gaze held mine, and in that second, I felt something shift between us. My fingers twitched, turning over so that they touched hers a little more deliberately. Slowly, I moved my hand, letting my fingertips slide over hers, taking my time, feeling every inch of the connection. I could feel her breath catch just barely, and it made me pause. I didn't want to break whatever fragile thing was happening between us. So I just let my fingers rest there, touching hers, feeling the warmth of her skin against mine. In that moment, it was enough. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel afraid. Aurora reached out, her fingers brushing against mine. It was a simple gesture, but it made my heart skip. "You're not as shy as you think, you know," she said quietly. "You just needed to find someone who listens." I looked at her, really looked at her, and in that moment, I knew. I didn't need a love potion. I didn't need magic. All I needed was the courage to open up. And with Aurora, I felt like I could finally do that.